if you're struggling to make insane drum and bass drums, then this tutorial is for you. I'm going to show you how to make drum and bass drums that work with pretty much any drum and bass tune. And then once the drums are created, we'll put a few basses in, different styles of basses, just to show you how these drums can work in so many different styles of tracks. So I'm using my project template, and if you don't have this already, it's available in the add-on section of my website, or it's available in my academy. Basically, all it is the drums are already set up in this 1 to 20 channel and in the playlist like this. So when I drag a sample in, it automatically routes to this channel. We automatically go to kick groups, clap groups, snare groups, and hat groups, and then we automatically go to this drum bus group and then to the master. And we'll get into that all a bit more later on. But let's just start with a kick drum. So the pack we're using is the Rollers DnB pack. Feel free to get that with the link down below. This will make everything 10 times easier. Or if not, then follow along with your own samples. So we've got all these different kick drums to choose from. And what we're going to do is just go for one that has a lot of low end and one that has a lot of transient as well. So I quite like the sound of this one. So let's put this in. And to make this super simple for you, I'm just going to start with the first 2 bars. So these 2 bars here, and then we'll go on more and make 8 bars later on. So I'll zoom right in for you, and you can see the kick drum is on the first beat. All we're going to do is put this on the second bar here, and then we're going to press Control and drag, hold Shift, and then move these across to the 3rd beat, and then we're going to move halfway across the 3rd beat. And we're just on step mode to do this. Then we get this pattern. We now need to look at the mix down. So we're going to make sure we're using gain staging techniques here. So we want the volume to be affected before it enters the mixer channel. So we're going to change the volume here to do that. So it's currently hitting -6 dB, as we can see. Let's just bring it down to -12. A little bit more. There we go. Something like that's fine. Now this kick drum is going to be the loudest element of all our drums. So -12 dB right there is going to be the loudest part. Now let's add a snare. So we can just go to the snare channel, and then we're going to scroll through these until we find one that sounds generic enough. Okay, quite like number 7 and number 10. Let's go with number 10. And then we're just going to drag this straight into our snare slot here. And we're going to put this on the 2nd beat like this, and then the 4th beat, and then just repeat that. And then this will be going straight from the snare to the snare group. And then we're going to want to change the volume again, just so it's below the kick. So a little bit more. That sounds good. And now I want to do a bit more to this. So I want to basically destroy the sound a little bit with a camel crusher. Now, if you don't have this plugin, it's completely free. I'll leave a link down below so you can download it. It's really great at just destroying sounds, basically. So let's use this annihilate setting, and then let's listen to it again. You can see it's boosted the volume a lot more. So we're going to just keep reducing this gain until it's below the kick again. Something like that. And now, because we've done a lot to the signal, we're going to just add this EQ in and then EQ some of the sound out, some of the mid sound, just so we get that snare sound back. So I'm going to do it around about 500 here. That sounds pretty good. Now we've got the basic kick snare element in, and they're both sounding really crisp and aggressive. Now you can do other drum patterns. For example, you could take the kick out here and just have it like this. Or there's other patterns you could do as well. But for now, I would just stick to the basics, this basic steppy pattern. And then once you get the basses in and other elements, you can then play around with the exact patterns. Now what we want to do is we want to add as much groove to the track as possible. So far all we've been focusing on is sound selection and getting the mix down right. Now we've got to focus on sound selection and mix down and groove, because without groove your drums are just going to sound crap. So you've really got to be careful with what you add now. So let's first add some hats. So let's go to the hat section down here. And what we want to do first is add a hat in the gap that we've created. And the gap that we've created is where we moved this kick drum across, so here. So let's grab this hi-hat and put it in the gap here. And then we'll just put another one here. And then this is routed automatically to the hi-hat group here. So from here to here, and then we'll just play it and adjust the gain again. Nice, so we can change that a bit more later on, but that's sounding good for now. So now we want to add a bit more swing to these hi-hats, and we're going to focus on this second hi-hat here, and we're going to put this hi-hat around it like this. So we're going to put one here, and then we'll just cut this off here. And then we'll just hold shift and drag this one across to duplicate it. And then we've got some swing around this hi-hat. I'm just going to turn this right down so it's a little bit quieter. There we go. And now if we play it, we should get this nice swing with the second hi-hat. Cool, that's sounding pretty cool. We already picked a kick drum with some transient, but I'm thinking we can add a little bit more transient with another hi-hat for the third hi-hat. So in this pack, we've also got some loops, and these loops are really overpowered. They're basically like hacks. So hi-hat 1, for example, because we're at 174 BPM, this is 174 BPM as well, so it matches. So normally what we would do is we'd come here, right click, auto detect, type in the BPM, and then change this mode to generic. But since it's already 174 BPM, it's already matching, so we don't really need to do that. So now we've got this whole hi-hat loop to work with, and what I normally do is just chop it up until I find elements that I like for the drums that I'm making. But because we just want it for the transient of this kick drum, I'm just going to chop it here. And then I'm going to duplicate it on here for the next bar. We only want it to hit on the first beat, not the second kick drum as well. So I did have a listen, and I might just make this a little bit snappier, this hi-hat here. And now we should have something that sounds like this. Now before we add some percussion, I want to add even more groove, and we can do this with a clap. So I'm going to go back to my claps, which are here. And we want a nice snappy one like this, and we're just going to find some gaps. And a really nice place to put these is before the second kick drum, just here. So you can see there's nothing currently on here. So I just drag this across and put it in clap 1 position, and then move the out like this so it's even snappier, so it doesn't clash with the next kick drum, as you can see there. And then we'll just duplicate this before this kick drum as well. You can see it might clash a little bit with this hi-hat, but we can adjust that later on. And now we're going to need to turn it down, but we'll just play it and see how it looks on the mix down. Yep. So something like that for now. And one thing I also want to cover is we want to make sure that the kick, clap and the snare are all in mono. Now you can see this purple thing here. This makes everything go into mono that goes to this channel. So the kick and the snare are already in mono, and we're just going to move this clap one as well to make it in mono. And then with hi-hats, we want them to be more stereo. So we can go the other direction, the blue direction, and separate them slightly to make them more stereo. So I'm just going to do that like that. So now if we press play again, you might hear a slight difference. So that's sounding pretty good. We can make it sound even better with some percussion. Luckily for you, I've created a bunch of loops all ready to go that sound insane. So we've got all these top loops and all these percussion loops here. And I'm going to use perk loop 5 and just literally drag it in onto the perk loop here. It's already 174 BPM. And then we're literally just going to go onto bar and get rid of that bit, and then there we go, we've got this element now. If you're enjoying the video so far, I'd really appreciate it if you could smash that like button. If we could go for 100 likes, that would be insane. Now let's press play and then adjust the mix down. We can also make this a little bit stereo. That's sounding pretty cool, and we can make that even quieter, but we can adjust that more when we add some basses. Now we've got some pretty solid drums, and we can check the mix down here to make sure everything's in place. And then what we can simply do is come in and change some elements if we don't like how they sound. For example, this hi-hat, I feel like it could sound better, so let me try a different one. Yeah, so I feel like that sounds slightly better. And then of course there's the option to change this snare with a clap depending on what tune you're making. So you know artists like Boo, they love using claps instead of snares. Let me just show you an example. So let's grab this clap here, just put it here. And just put it in the same spot where the snare is. Turn the snare off, turn this down a little bit. So you can see now we've got a clap instead. And you can get different ones. Sounds pretty cool, that one. But again, we won't know until we add the basses in as well, and how it sounds with the basses, because your basses can have different frequencies to your clap or snare depending on what clap and snare you're using, but we've got loads to choose from. So let's just turn the snare back on for now. One more thing I'm going to do just to tidy up the mix down is add an EQ to the hi-hats and just EQ out any of the low end just in case any's got through. We'll do it at about 500-ish, 500 to 600-ish. So that looks fine to me. But now we want to create an 8-bar loop. So you can see currently I've only done 2 bars because the majority of your loop is just going to be 2 bars repeated. So now what we can do is duplicate this for 1 bar, and then I'm just going to add a little percussion element at the end of this section here, and then we'll duplicate it again, and then we'll do some transition effect at the end of the section. So let's grab a percussion, and we're just going to put it right at the end. So we're on step mode and it's the last step here, and then we can just adjust the volume like that, and then we're just gonna make sure it doesn't go into the next kick drum, and then do a little volume automation down there. Now we should get something that sounds like this, and then of course we can change that with different sounds once we add in more elements like the basses. So now we're just going to duplicate this and create a full 8-bar loop, and then we're just going to slightly adjust the last section. So for this example we'll just do the last bar. And of course this is going to change depending on how your tune sounds and what elements are happening. But this is just a generic example, the most popular one I use. So we're going to make this kick drum happen more. So we're going to add one here and here and here. And then you can either have the kick drum here or here. So I'm going to leave it there for now. We can always change it. Now let's just zoom in and let's add some more hi-hats. So let's try adding one here and then one here. So maybe something like this. Now let's listen. Yeah, something like that sounds pretty cool. And then we've got a little transition section sorted. So now we've got a full loop complete. So this is what the loop sounds like. And then with the clap. So now we can go a step further and make the drums sound even fatter. So one way to do this is to add reverb. Now I don't really do this that much anymore with my drums because I feel like it doesn't make it sound as good, but the option is there. And if you want to add reverb to any of your elements, you literally just come onto this project template like this, and you just click on this reverb thing at the bottom here and then adjust the amount you want. So for example, we could add some to the percussion, and then you're just going to want to add small amounts. So let me just add it to all the hi-hats in tiny amounts so you can hear what it sounds like. So then you can come and fine tune this later on, but just don't go too crazy on it because honestly it'll ruin your mix down. Just want really subtle changes. Now next we can have a look at the drum bus and let's see what the volume is coming in at. So it's actually nice and quiet at -12 dB. So one thing I like to do is grab a satin and just saturate it a bit. So just put the drive up to like 25%. And if you don't have satin at all, then don't worry about this too much. It doesn't really make that much difference. And then we get this. Actually, that does sound pretty cool. But then another thing we can do is we can add a Pro L or just any limiter. And then we can boost the frequencies here to our liking. Let's just play it and I can show you what I mean. So I'm essentially just controlling the volume a bit with this, and it sounds really awesome as well. So that when we add in our basses and everything, we can like kind of fight the drums for sound against the basses with this Pro L gain here. And it's just a really effective and efficient way of producing. But there's also one more thing we can do. So you see these P, C, and PD along the side here. This is parallel compression and parallel distortion. Now these are automatically getting sent to the parallel compression and distortion channels from the drum bus, and then these are going back to the master. So we can actually add even more to these drums. So let's first do parallel compression, and we're going to do this by finding the fruity compressor, which is here, and then we're literally just going to pick a preset. In fact, the blower preset actually sounds really good here. So you can see it's getting sent to this parallel compression here. But it's a bit loud at the moment, so let's just turn it down on the mix here. And then we can add some parallel distortion as well. Now you can use a Fruity Fast Distort for this, or a Blood Overdrive, but it can literally destroy the sound. So I'm just going to use a Satin again, And we're just going to put it on around 20-ish%. And then if we press play now, let's just increase the gain a little bit so it's matching the... So it's just a little bit quieter actually. So that sounds pretty cool. Now if we listen with and without, so this is without, and then this is with. So it's just making the drums sound even fatter. So we've covered everything to get your drums sounding awesome. Now let's see how it sounds with some basses. So I've got all these loops from the Rollers pack. Let's see how they hold up against these drums. So let's listen to this first loop. Sounds pretty cool. Let's grab another loop. Sounds pretty cool. Let's try this one. I feel like this perk loop can sometimes be a little bit overpowering, so let's turn it down. And we can even just turn it off for some of them, so you can adjust things depending on what basses you're using. Both sound pretty good. And then let's try a foghorn. We've got to try a foghorn. Let's try a couple of jump up loops as well, just so I can show you that these do really work with everything. There you go, sounds pretty cool. Try one more with this clap. So you can see that drum ending there didn't quite work with these basses, so you obviously wouldn't do that for this. But you just have to adjust as you produce and as you change basses up. So this is like a really great starting point, and then you make slight adjustments as you go along, depending on what basses you add. So yeah, these are just from my Jump Up drum and bass pack. This is a really sick pack as well. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you've got any questions down below, and make sure to check out that Rollers DnB pack. It's going to really help your productions. And also, my production academy is now available to join. It's currently at insane value. You're going to get so much from it. There's a link down below if you want to join that. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.